Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks why, I'm here to ask, why not? I'll be breaking down the mindsets of guests as well as my own in a bid to find out what makes people say, why not? Hi guys, and welcome back to Why Not. So today I have an interview with Meg Sloan. So Meg is a self-worth coach. What that is, you might be asking? Well, basically she helps people who are people pleasers and self-sabotagers overcome fear and truly put themselves first and cultivate a sense of self-worth. I think it's something we all really need some more of, and Meg is really championing that for people and making them for once put themselves first and feel good about themselves. Podcast, we talk about how she does, kind of technique she does with people. It's a really interesting podcast. So we do talk about how she deals with clients and her background in therapy and how that helps. And guys, as ever, sit back, relax, or walk and listen, whatever way you want to enjoy. Here's my podcast with Meg Sloan. So hi guys, and welcome back to the Why Not podcast. Today I've got Meg Sloan with me. So Meg is a self-worth coach, and I'm going to let Meg explain a little bit more to you guys what that is. So hi Meg, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Chrissy, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So would you like to explain to everyone what a self-worth coach is? Because I think you would explain it better than me.
I feel like a lot of people read the word self-worth and they're like, what even is that? So generally I help people pleasers and self-sabotage to overcome fear, start to truly put themselves first, and to kind of cultivate this inner sense of self-worth. What I found was that a lot of their struggles were tied to not valuing themselves. So I find that's where a lot of it starts, whether that's to do with relationships or their career or just like their general sense of self. So we work on that with a lot with people, but it can go into a lot of areas, as I'm sure we'll cover throughout the podcast today.
That is actually, it's really interesting because as you were saying that, I was just like, oh yeah, that is like, I'd say what, 90% of the population?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all have a bit of people-pleasing tendencies and a bit of self-sabotaging tendencies, definitely.
Definitely, I know I've done it many a time.
Yes.
What led you to get into this? Like, what brought you down this path?
So I originally started out as a therapist. I say originally, it took me quite a while to get there. I actually did criminology as like my undergrad degree, because I was 18, didn't know what to do with my life, and was like, that sounds interesting. And then got to the end of that degree and realised, oh, I actually need to like work out what job I want to do. And I didn't want to go into like the police or the prison service, but I did volunteer on like a mental health helpline. And I found that really fulfilling, really interesting, and I knew that was the route I wanted to go down. So then I did a psychology conversion degree, and I did that classic thing of thinking, oh, a psychology degree, that'll mean I'll just be able to walk into a job as a therapist. I knew that was the direction I wanted to go in, but actually when you get into it, you learn that it's a lot more than that. So I had to do a bit more training, but then I ended up as a therapist working in the NHS in the UK. And I really enjoyed that job a lot. But then when lockdown hit last year, I had so much time to think, and I started doing a lot of the self-development stuff that I've always been interested in, but I procrastinated on it a lot when I was busy. So then I started to like actually sit down and do a lot of the work, and like have workshops. Like I literally had a procrastinating workshop that I had procrastinated on, so I actually sat down and did that. And I started to like learn a lot more about myself, and I started to realize that the job I was doing, I wasn't actually happy in. And that came as quite a big shock because obviously, as I said, I worked for it for quite a long time. So then I started to get clear on what it was I didn't like about it, because there was a lot of elements that I really enjoyed. And a lot of it was to do with kind of the structure of the NHS and kind of feeling quite restricted. And I learned that freedom was actually something that was really important to me. And then I got my own life coaching to help me with that decision. And the coach just said to me one day, do you want to be a therapist or do you want to be a life coach? And I was like, I actually really want to be a life coach. But as a therapist, it was quite like a forbidden word. It was like, you mentioned life coach and they like kind of roll their eyes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a lot of people don't know what it is, or they think it's like really woo and like Americanized and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but then once I made that decision, I mean, I did kind of dilly-dally on it for a while. It took me a while to get like my Instagram set up, but that's when I decided that's what I want to do. And then the business has kind of evolved from there. So it's been quite a long time in the making, but I started this officially kind of August last year.
Oh wow. So you have kind of done a big kind of turnaround. You're like, oh, it's not been a long time since you started.
Yeah. I think when I found coaching, I was like, this is what I've kind of been looking for. I just find the freedom that comes with it because I'm able to use my therapeutic tools, but I've also been doing a coaching qualification. I'm just able to bring like my full self, whereas when I was a therapist, I did feel quite restricted. But yeah, as soon as I decided, I did go a bit kind of full throttle, and ended up leaving my job in April this year. Um, and that wasn't because of the business, that was just because of like lockdown fatigue, and I needed a break. Um, but yeah, then I went just full in on the coaching and have been doing it since then.
How did actually people react to you leaving a job in the NHS for self-employment?
It was interesting because the job that I trained in and I'd been doing for quite a while, I left that in August last year. I went to like a new place. I was doing the same job, but I went to a new place. So I'd already kind of made that jump and said goodbye to a lot of my colleagues. And I was quite concerned about my new colleagues finding my Instagram, I remember. And at one point I was like, should I make it private? But then I was like, well, then I'm limiting the people that I could reach as coaching clients. So I did actually have to tell them as well as part of like their HR policy, and they were really cool about it. I think a lot of it was coming from my own head as well. And then when I left my job, I was convinced at least one person in my life would be like, that's not a good idea. Why are you doing that? But actually, everyone was so supportive. I think a lot of people could see that the coaching was really important to me and how much I lit up when I spoke about it and things like that. So everyone was really supportive, but I definitely had those thoughts before of like, oh my God, like, am I really right to be leaving this job? Like, is this a good step for me? And it took a long time for me to get there. But funny enough, everyone was actually really supportive. I mean, secretly in their minds, might be thinking, what the hell is she doing? But at the minute, it feels like everyone's supportive.
But once they don't say it to you, that's the main thing, isn't it?
Yeah, because you have all that doubt yourself. Like, you don't need anybody else influencing that and adding to that. So I'm really grateful that all my friends and family are on the same page as me.
Do you think that it was the lockdown that forced you to think about it more?
No, like I definitely think having the time to think, like, definitely influenced my decision because, like so many of us, like I just wasn't like slowing down and really thinking about what I was doing, and I wasn't like evaluating where I was or like setting myself goals or anything like that. I think once you do get out of kind of like formal education or structures where they do kind of set goals for you, it's hard to do that for yourself. So having the literal time in lockdown to do nothing else kind of made me reflect and think, is this what I want? And then actually like start to set myself goals. But yeah, like before that, I was happily kind of just going day to day, feeling a bit dissatisfied, but not actually realizing the extent that I did want to change things up.
Yeah. Do you find a lot of people are like that? Like clients you're getting or clients you're getting during lockdown, were they finding a lot of the same issues?
Yeah, definitely. I think lockdown kind of highlighted a lot of issues, and there was no other way to distract yourself, because there was just literally so much time. So I think it did kind of shine a light on things that people have maybe been able to avoid with like going into work and having a social life for sure.
As I said, you're a self-worth coach, and you were saying some of the things you deal with are people pleasing and self-sabotage. Can you explain them a little bit? I think a lot of people have heard them before, but I think it's nice to, if you're not fully certain what it is, could you explain them?
Yeah, definitely, because we hear it all the time. But yeah, like you say, you might not be totally aware if you are doing those things. So with people pleasing, it's basically putting everybody else's needs before your own. And there's a lot of different things that can come with that. So some of the things you might notice might be um never having time for yourself, but also like avoiding conflict, making yourself unhappy in order to make other people happy, and just generally not really considering your needs. With self-sabotaging, it's kind of a similar mechanism almost, but it's like getting in your own way. So you're still kind of not recognizing your own needs, but you're doing something that is getting in the way of that. I think the main one that I see is procrastination. And a lot of people think procrastination means that they're lazy, but actually what I find is that procrastination is usually avoiding some kind of fear. So a lot of people think, well, if I give my full effort to whatever it is, whether that's like a project for work or a business or a hobby, then if I fail, I won't have any excuse. But if I procrastinate and do it in like 1 hour instead of the like 2 weeks I have, then I can say, oh, well, it wasn't that great because I didn't give it my full effort. But there's other ways you can self-sabotage as well. And I've actually been running a series on Instagram about that. And there's so many great episodes like going into it with like money and things like that. So again, it's kind of what we were saying before about like kind of distracting from the problem. So people might spend money on like online shopping, or they might indulge in overeating and things like that and kind of distract from the problem. But ultimately, like I say, that's getting in the way of what they truly need.
Okay. Would you say you fall victim to both of them in your time?
Yeah, yes. Literally, my series is about that because I've had all the experts say like, whenever you self-sabotage, what's that been like for you? And I'm sure all of us can relate to self-sabotaging and people pleasing. Like we all have elements of it. So a lot of my coaching is around acknowledging that and showing that it's normal, and that we all experience it, whether we're a therapist, a coach, PT, whoever. But then finding ways to move out of that so that we are truly kind of honoring our needs and showing that they're important.
Yeah, you're right there. It's like some of the stuff you were talking about there, especially when you said procrastination, I was like, that's me.
Yeah, I talk about this and I've literally been procrastinating like recently. Like I was saying, like how ironic that I'm self-sabotaging in the middle of my self-sabotage series, but I think the key is just becoming aware of it and starting to notice when you're doing it. But we all do it. No one is immune at all.
Yeah. And do you think those kind of things bring a lot of like negative self-talk?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because what it does is it kind of goes into those stories that we tell ourselves, like with procrastination, it is, well, I'm lazy, I don't get things done. And with people pleasing, it's that, I'm not a good friend. So even if we are actually bending over backwards to help the people in our lives, we still somehow get it to kind of reinforce that story that we're not a good friend or we're not a good person to be around. So all of these behaviors do just reinforce those stories that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah. Are the things you teach people for, say, self-sabotage similar to people pleasing, or would they be kind of different?
No, they usually are quite similar because it is kind of like stripping it back. Like I
Yeah.
say, when it is something that's getting in the way of what you actually want, it is becoming aware of it, because you can't change something if you're not aware of it. And then it's getting clarity on what that person wants. So what they would like things to look like. So usually that's like, well, what would things look like if you weren't to put other people's needs before yourself? Or what could life look like for you if you weren't self-sabotaging? How would you like things to be? And then we work out the steps that are going to get them there, and then just kind of tackle the obstacles that will come up along the way. So if that self-sabotage does reappear, it's about again acknowledging it, becoming aware of it, but being compassionate with ourselves as well, because like we said before, we all do it. So beating yourself up even more isn't going to help.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
When you ask people about what they would like their life to be like, do they struggle to come with an answer to that?
What I usually find is people are very good at describing what they don't want their life to be like. So it'll be, well, I don't want to people please anymore, or I don't want to feel not confident at work. Like, I don't want to make mistakes. That comes up a lot. So then it's about kind of flipping it into the positive. Because if we're always focusing on what we don't want, we usually kind of subconsciously get into that. So then it's about thinking, okay, well, if you were more confident, or if you were to put yourself first, what would that look like for you? Because although I see a lot of clients who are coming with similar things, I always just think it's so important for the person themselves to come up with what they want things to be like, because it is different for everyone, even if we all
Yeah.
have kind of common threads running through it.
Oh yeah, it is always individual how it works for them. But I know, yeah, there's like common style themes and stuff, but it's going to be different for everyone.
Yeah, because we with our clients we'll say a lot of the same things, but it's really important to not always like assume that they're coming with that same thing. And obviously for the person, this might be the first time they've like acknowledged that this is going on for them, or like started to really self-reflect. So it's just really important that they come up with their own answers. And I think a lot of people come to like any kind of coaching or teaching thinking we're going to give them all the answers, and yes, we guide them, but a lot of the time they know themselves what's important to them.
Yeah. Do you get any kickback when you get them to do it themselves? Do you know what I mean? Like I said, they come to you asking, looking for the answers, and then you're like, well, what do you think? And they be like, hold on a minute, this is why I came to you. You're supposed to tell me.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. I say, well, what do you think? I think I put up something on Instagram about this recently of like about decisions and like making decisions, and it's like you have like I tell people like you know the answers, you really do. You've just got to let them come through, and a lot of it is kind of going beneath that self-talk because we tell ourselves about what we can and can't achieve. But yeah, but they're like, yeah, but what do you think? I'm like, no, what do you think? So there's a little bit of back and forth around that. So yeah, there is usually kickback, but if they give themselves the time and space, they usually do know. And then sometimes as well, if it's really not coming through, I get them to start taking action because clarity often comes through action, which I'm sure you've heard before. But actually experimenting with things and knowing that if it doesn't work out, that's okay as well, because now you've learned that's what you don't want, and then that will give you more information about what you do want, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. It's just because it didn't work doesn't mean it's complete failure is kind of as well, that as well. That
Yeah,
you've learned
yeah,
from it. You've learned, okay, no, I don't like this, as opposed
yeah,
to, no, I'm never trying again.
yeah, exactly. And things always change as well, so it's good to like just try things out, because things that you tried before, you can try them again in like a couple of years and things change. Like I've had so many experiences with that. Like I've ended up getting into a lot of spiritual stuff, which if you asked me like 2 years ago, I would be like, that's absolute crap. Like no one, that can't be true. Like that's not a thing. But actually now that my beliefs and, situations changed, it's like become a really essential part of my life.
Would any of that stuff you would have done before, would that have come in with the therapy as well? Would any of that cross a line, or with the therapy would they be like, no, that's silly, that's too woo woo, as you said, like.
Yeah. It's funny because mindfulness is becoming really, really popular. It has been for quite a few years now, actually, but it's definitely being used a lot more in the therapy space. I think a lot of the misconceptions with therapy is that like there's only one type of therapy. Because I hear a lot about the kind of comparison of coaching to therapy is that therapy focuses on the past, whereas what I was trained in was low intensity CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which quite a lot of people have heard of. And that actually always focuses on the here and now and what you can kind of control in that. So yeah, I've kind of lost my train of thought for the question. What were we talking about there? Oh, the woo-woo stuff coming
Yeah.
in. Yeah, so mindfulness is becoming really popular within CBT as well. But yeah, I wouldn't go too woo-woo. That's mindfulness can be like non-spiritual as well. So there's like elements that I can see creeping in, but it wouldn't be as much as what I use in my coaching now, which again is where the freedom comes in for me, because I like being able to bring all of my experiences to my sessions, but equally I'm led by the client too. So if a client's not spiritual, I wouldn't say, well, you need to become spiritual. But I have the freedom to bring that stuff in if it feels appropriate.
Would you had, like, obviously without going into too much detail, would you had certain rules you had to follow as part of the NHS,
Yeah.
like you couldn't do certain things and
Yeah, well, it has to be all evidence-based, which
mm.
obviously has its merits because, you don't want people. I remember one of the lectures when I was training was like, you can't just be, crystal healing and things like that. You can't be doing that in sessions, which I totally get because then everyone could just make up their own rules. But I do think there's certain elements of the non-evidence-based stuff that can be helpful for people. And like I say, I'm just always led by the client. If there's something I think that can be helpful, I will bring it up with them. If they say, actually, I tried that and it didn't work for me, then we'll adapt or we'll try something else.
Yeah, that sounds like it works a lot better in a sense for you. Do you know what I mean? You can provide a better experience without, that's not the words I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a broader, like there's more things you can do with the client, you know what I mean? As I said, your freedom. So if you think something's a good idea, you don't have to go, oh, am I allowed to do that? You can
Yeah,
go,
yeah.
let's try this out.
Yeah, because there was always that layer of me just making sure that I was being correct. And also there's like things of like you're not allowed to be political within like therapy. You're always meant to stay quite neutral, which sometimes is quite hard because sometimes people would ask your opinions and things like that. And there's all sorts of things in therapy about self-disclosure, which is like sharing your own experiences with the client. Some people actually really frown upon it. Some people have the mindset that the therapist needs to be the expert and they should be never really sharing their experiences, whereas literally that is my jam. Like, I love telling the client, like, I've been where you are, like I've had the exact same experience and relating to them on that level. So yeah, there was a few different elements where I would have to be more, I guess, reserved, whereas now I feel like I can be totally myself, which is what I'm getting my clients to do, so it feels a lot more authentic.
Yeah, I get you. Actually, that's interesting that they tell you to, in a sense, to hold it back in some scenarios, because you kind of think it's the whole part of it being relatable and knowing the person you're talking to has gone through stuff like that. For me, anyway, I think would make things so much better. Not better, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, you'd feel more at ease with them. You'd feel like, okay, I'm not, for want of a better
yeah.
word, crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think ethics is one of those things where it's quite hard. Like, you can never really draw a line. Like, there's always kind of grey areas, and they did leave a lot of it to us as well. But there are just more kind of guidelines and things like that. But there's pros and cons to both as well, because coaching is unregulated. So there are people who can just show up and be like, I'm a coach, and they have no training. And I think it's really important to hold space for people in a way that's safe. So yeah, there's kind of pros and cons to both. I love therapy and I loved being a therapist, and I've always said I might change my mind and go back to that, and that would be okay. But at the minute, the coaching side feels good for me, and like I say, I really do feel like I'm being authentically myself, which is what I've always wanted.
That is the main thing.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned there about it being unregulated. Do you come across many people where you're just like, you need to stop this now?
To be honest, it's all the business coaches in my DMs, and I know you posted about this on Instagram. Like, I'm just like, you've not read my profile like at all,
Yeah.
and just going straight in for the sale. And I'm like, do you not want to get to know me first? It's like going on a first date and like going straight to the relationship. Like, you need to get to know me first and buy me dinner.
Yeah.
um, those are usually the ones that I find are maybe being a bit unethical. But yeah, I don't know, like, I surround myself with quite a lot of people who are very like-minded to me. So I haven't come across too many life coaches where I think, oh, I'm not sure about that. So like I say, it's more the business coach side of things where it's a bit
Yeah,
sketchy.
they're a bit dodgy, all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of the same with, like, it's the same in the fitness industry. Like, if you want to start, say, for instance, an online coaching business, if you have enough followers, you can do it without a qualification, which kind of
Right.
gets them under my skin a bit. But and then of course they like, if some people are giving dodgy advice as well, because well, they have the platform, they decided it works and people will buy it, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't see them very often. I kind of forgot they existed for quite a while, because I do only
Yeah.
follow people who talk about, like, who are like, no, let's do it balanced, let's do it properly. And it's kind of
Yeah.
funny. It sounds like those business coaches coming to your DMs, you're like, you remind me there's still charlatans
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. We're on a bit of an echo chamber, which is good in some respects and not in other ways. But yeah, you do just forget that there's people out there. I also think it makes me forget that there's people out there that don't know about like self-development and like mindset work and like, the mindsets that we might have.
Mm.
Because everyone in my space is talking about the same thing. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things that makes you think sometimes, but there'll always be someone in the message request who remind you of the other people out there.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think, actually, just thinking about social media, do you think that is causing a lot more issues with people, like, say, as you said, people who are in your kind of space, like people pleasers or like self-sabotage? Like, do you feel that that can cause them way more, like, more anxiety, more problems along the way, like you watching other people? Or
Yeah, yeah. I find that the comparison piece, so comparing your life to others, is massive on social media. And because social media is largely unregulated, there are people presenting things which aren't authentic.
mm,
Like, the things to bring to mind is like the Kardashians and photoshopping, so it's completely unrealistic. Um, but people sometimes don't see that. And particularly, like, the younger generation, I do think, girls who are like 14, 15, like, what do they think? Because in my age, we were barely having like mobile phones, never mind like Instagram and TikTok and everything like that.
I think we just about got camera phones when I was their age, not even.
Flip phones, and
Yeah.
I had a BlackBerry as well at some point, but I think they're like not cool anymore.
No, apparently
um,
not.
yeah, but yeah, so there's just so much more out there now, and I find as well, funny enough, that social media is the way that I would tend to self-sabotage by consuming other people's content. And there's so much research out there now that says that, it does have an effect on self-esteem, anxiety levels, stress levels, like all of those things. And it's quite rare that I feel good after being on social media. So again, it's like that kind of self-awareness piece of how is that activity making you feel, and then making a more intentional choice around that.
Yeah, that's true. What kind of things can you put in place with your social media, do you find, that can help you feel less comparisony?
It's definitely having some form of boundaries. For me, that looks like not following people who make me feel like crap. That always helps. I did unfollow all the Kardashians. Like, I'm a reality TV junkie, but just following them made me feel like crap. So yeah, they were gone. If there's people in your life, you can also like mute them rather than unfollow if you don't want to kind of cause any arguments. And then being, like I say, intentional about like when you're using it. So I log out of all my social media on the weekends, because I found that I was spending my weekends looking at what other people were doing rather than like actually being present in my weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, like deleting the apps or signing out of them, kind of putting something in between, because a lot of us are so like automatic when we go on our phones, we just immediately go to Facebook or Instagram. So actually logging out of them puts that other step in, being like, do I actually want to go on this right now? And then maybe screen time things as well, because I know Apple put in like, you can put in like, oh, you've been on your phone for like a couple hours now, like do you want to still continue? And just having those little things that break the kind of automatic pilot that we all kind of get into when it comes to social media.
Yeah, that's a good one. I haven't had the screen time in. Can only imagine if you're scrolling through your phone and you just got a notification going, yeah, you've been on this long. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I did just ignore it and be like, yeah, whatever, I'm just going to keep scrolling. But so sometimes it is enough. So it's just about being really honest with yourself of like, is this what I want to be doing right now? And then doing little things that can help you to like break that habit a little bit.
Some phones, I know there's an app you can download, but there's also some phones have it on it where you can actually block your apps for certain periods of time.
Yeah.
So I found that one brilliant. I have one, and what I find is I start going into other things that I can use to scroll,
Yeah. Yeah.
to procrastinate. But like, there's only so much YouTube I can watch. I'm not into YouTube, so
Yeah. Honestly, I avoided downloading TikTok for so long because I knew I would get addicted. And then I thought I saw you doing so well on it, and I was like, okay, I need to get on TikTok and start making videos. And I've been scrolling for hours, and I noticed they don't have the time at the top, and I'm like, that's got to be like some kind of tactic to make you forget how long you've been on it, because I can spend hours there and not even realize.
oh, I'm the same. It's like I think they have max 3 minute videos now, but like most of the time it's max 1 minute. And you're
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, I'm only watching like 1 minute videos, and next thing it's 2 hours later, and like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. So having like some kind of like timer on, or reminder to like help you like realize, okay, I've been on here like a little bit longer than I anticipated. Just something to break it up and kind of interrupt that behavior. But it is hard.
Yeah. That mute button you mentioned as well on Instagram is amazing, and especially
Yeah.
I think if you're someone as a people pleaser and you don't want your friend to see you that you've like unfollowed them, but they're causing you grief,
Yeah.
that mute thing, they have no idea.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it is okay to unfollow people as well. Like I've seen so many posts saying like, just because you're unfollowing people on social media doesn't mean you're unfollowing them in real life. And I think we forget that because our lives are
Mm.
so like entrenched with social media now. Like it feels like they're not even separate. But yeah, if you are like struggling, and sometimes I just mute people for a little bit. Like if I find I'm going through a stressful time and it's just that time that I want to not see their content, it can be helpful for that as well.
Yeah, I find that as well. I just like me like that. I'd feel in a sense bad if I unfollow them. If they're people I
Yeah,
know. If it's someone I don't know and they bore me, I'm gone.
yeah.
But if
Yeah.
it's like, but the mute button, yeah, it's been a godsend. And then you realize you don't notice when they're gone until a few weeks later when you're scrolling. You're like, I haven't seen anything through that. I haven't been mad in a week about something.
Yeah, yeah. It is really helpful. but yeah, I think a lot of people don't even realize that of, the people that you see day on day really do impact on the way that you're feeling. So you can take those steps to kind of take back that control.
Yeah. You mentioned boundaries there earlier as well, which is kind of, we're talking around boundaries here, but what do you think people struggle to set boundaries?
Yes, and I think people really struggle to enforce them as well. So if someone crosses a boundary, I think it's really hard to say that's actually not okay with me. And I'm speaking from personal experience there as well. Um, but yeah, and I think like we're just not taught to have boundaries. Like in the culture that we live in, it's just all, be there for everyone, do everything. I literally just posted something on Instagram last night of like, you don't have to do everything all the time. I think it's just so ingrained in us that we just think that's what we have to do, but you can actually choose what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and in relationships what is okay with you and what isn't okay with you. But yeah, a lot of people have never really had that mindset before, so if I ask them that question, they're like, oh, I'm not sure, like I'm not sure what I want out of that. um
Mm.
so yeah, so setting them is hard and enforcing them is hard as well.
Definitely. Do you find they've gotten any better because of lockdown with boundaries, because you kind of had that time to step by, or they kind of, as we're coming out, it's on the flip side, you're like, oh no, I have to go do all do this because I've lost the last year or so.
I think there's a bit of both. I think there's a lot of people who are quite apprehensive about the world reopening, and are trying to protect that, like, I guess, me time where they are spending more time on their own or just with their partner or whoever they live with. And there is the flip side where people are getting out and about. But so everyone I've spoke to said they're just exhausted because we're not used to that much kind of interaction.
Mm.
Um, like even just like running errands and things like that. Like I don't know about you, but I literally had only been to the supermarket for like months, and then even just like bars reopening or like salons reopening, like going for I get my like eyebrows done. It only takes 10 minutes, but that social interaction could like wear me out.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's just about being aware of that, because I think we all just think we went into lockdown and we were like good with it straight away, but it did take a lot of us a long time to adjust to it, and it's the same coming out. Um, but we will adjust to it. It's just about, being aware of that and pacing yourself and protecting that time that might be infiltrated now by social plans. A lot of my clients I've been speaking to recently, we've just been saying, think about how much you want to spend time either on your own or in the house or doing something just for you, and protect that time in your diary, like schedule it almost like it's a meeting with someone or going out, and put it in your calendar. And then if like a plan comes up and you want to do it, you can always switch it. So for example, say you decide Saturday mornings, that's when I'm going to have like my self-care time, or just spend time with my partner. If someone wants to go for breakfast on Saturday, you can swap it to Sunday morning. But
Mm.
if Sunday's full and like Saturday afternoon's full, you can say, well, actually, I don't have that time in my schedule right now, and do it another time. But keeping that time protected can be really important, just so that you are, like I say, pacing yourself and refilling your cup up rather than just going full throttle without thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it's very easy to go like that, isn't it? It's just like, well, I can now, so why shouldn't I?
Yeah, yeah. And like I was totally like that before lockdown. Like I realized all of my weekends were filled. And then having it all wiped out was actually such a big relief. So I'm trying to be more intentional to not go back to that as well. And just, yeah, taking it slow.
Yeah, I've been a bit like that with work. Like I did say before, because we have the like, we're open 7 days or just something on 7 days. So it didn't work Sundays, but there was the odd time where, yeah, I'll cover the classes,
Yeah,
and you're like, you're taking that day away from me. So when I came back, I was like, no,
yeah,
I'm not doing this. You're on your own for that one.
yeah, yeah. And knowing that that's okay, and they will survive, they will find someone else to do it, or they can make other arrangements. But that losing that day or that morning to you could like be the difference between you like burning out or feeling good.
Yeah. So to everyone out there, if you're struggling to set boundaries, do them.
Yeah, yeah. It is difficult. Like I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie, but it's so worth it. Like it's just so worth it.
Yeah, it definitely is. Okay, so I think that is most of the questions I have for you, other than my big question that you've had the last 40 minutes to think about.
Yeah.
So I asked this to everyone. So what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten? And you are allowed more than one, because I've let everyone else do more than one. So
I've been thinking about this because my mum gives me a lot of great advice. And I think it is, do what makes you happy. because when I was thinking about quitting my job, I was thinking about everybody else. So I was thinking about all the clients, my colleagues, my manager. And my mum was like, what do you want to do though? Like, you need to do what makes you happy. And I realized that that job wasn't making me happy anymore, even though I felt those like kind of, I guess, like loyalties to all those other people. So yeah, and I think if you just live by that in life, it would be really good. It's not always easy as it says. Easier said than done. But yeah, doing what makes you happy is definitely one of those things I really want to live by.
You're totally right though, because like you can't make everyone else happy and forget yourself. So I think it's good. Like, it sounds simple. It's not simple, but it's definitely important.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that people say to me is like, but I'm so busy, like I don't have time for self-care. And it's like, self-care actually makes the other things easier. Like, you're more present, you're more efficient if you give a bit of time to yourself, even if it feels hard at first. So yeah, prioritizing your own needs feels selfish, but it's definitely not selfish.
No, not at all. And also, if you check that screen time, you'll find time in there that you could be doing self-care.
Exactly. Just be honest with yourself, and yeah, looking at that screen time will give you a reality check real quick.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so thanks for joining us today, Meg. Where can everybody find you?
So I largely hang out on Instagram. My handle is Meg_Sloan_. And I also have a website, which is megsloan.co.uk. And I'm actually hosting a workshop quite soon. I'm not sure when the episode's coming out, but it's going to be on the 19th of July, the workshop. Is this going to come out beforehand?
Yeah, it's going to come out this Friday. So yeah, tell us all
perfect.
about the workshop.
So it's going to be on journaling and meditation, because those are the two tools that I find for myself and my clients helps to get in touch with what you actually want, and helps to remove all of those kind of limiting beliefs and societal things that we tell ourselves. So it's going to be for anyone who has never done it before, but also people who have done it and maybe not got on with it, because my kind of mission in life is to help everyone find tools that work for them. So there's going to be plenty of adaptations to the kind of traditional methods. But also if you tried them before and you just want a bit of a refresh. So all the deals are, there's like a pop-up on my website, so you can find it through there.
Okay, brilliant. So guys, I would highly recommend signing up to that as well. And it's not going to be woo-woo. The stuff's very, very good and very beneficial.
No, you can put in as much woo as you want, but yeah, it's going to be very practical tips, so don't worry about that.
I love that. As much woo as you want. So woo is optional.
Yeah, the woo is definitely optional, but I do recommend it because I love it.
Yeah. Okay, so and as ever, you can find me on Instagram. It's Chrissyhfit, and also on TikTok at Chrissyhfit. I just don't end up on it for 2 hours after. So thanks again for joining us, Meg.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.